I guess, Thomas, I hand over now to you guys. I think we should start.
Thank you very much, Leon. We appreciate for all the work that you've done to organize this event. I would like to welcome everybody to this event on behalf of FAO and UN-Habitat, and as well as NRC, who are working on women access to land for peace and development in South Sudan with the support of the UN Peacebuilding Fund. This has been going on for the last 2 years. This project has been going on for the last 2 years. And we thought that we could use this opportunity of this event to share some of our experiences, but also some of our lessons learned that we think should be picked up in moving forward. So we thought that we could share that with a wider audience and also perhaps get some inputs that perhaps the government of South Sudan could take on. I am particularly pleased that the government of South Sudan is also with us here, represented at the highest level. I welcome the ministers that are here and the land commissioner and the mayor who is here. I welcome them all. And of course, some of the people that are working within the field, including traditional leaders and some women and other stakeholders that we're working with on the. I welcome them to this event. I think they will enrich it. We're also delighted that many of you have turned up to listen to what we have to say, and we very much look forward to your input to what we've been doing, but most importantly, to ideas that then the government of South Sudan could pick up and move forward with them on this very important topic of women access to land, but also on land management in general to consolidate peace. These are the few remarks that I have. Our facilitator for the event is Evelyn. Evelyn is a senior advisor at UN-Habitat on land and gender issues. We are privileged to have her here to take us through the program, and she will be facilitating our discussion this afternoon. With these few remarks, again, I want to say welcome to everybody, and I want then at this juncture to hand over to Evelyn to take us through the event. Thank you very much. Over to you, Evelyn.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Let's zoom into the partnership of UN-Habitat, FAO, NRC, jointly with the support of the government of South Sudan. And as Thomas has mentioned, is a major opportunity we have to discuss what does this mean in terms of securing land for peace in South Sudan, and particularly with the focus of WOW. So to kick us off and to really give us the right footing into this webinar, we would like to welcome his Honorable Michael Sienjek, who is the Minister of Land, Housing and Development in South Sudan, to provide us a reflection of land administration in this country of South Sudan, as well as the judicial system challenges and opportunities. With your permission, sir, you can proceed. You can hear me, and probably you can get an alert that you are there. Hello, do we have any connection challenge for Honorable Michael? Lauren, any effort to support or any support that you can provide?
Yeah, I think he's mute. I think he's mute, Evelyn. I think Lawrence has to help a little bit.
Lawrence, could you support and check the mute button, please, just to unmute? Leon, you can help us out also if you are able to unmute honorable member or minister. Maybe as we progress, we can call upon the next speaker probably to come on board. Lawrence, if you could hear us, please, and the Honorable Minister, kindly if you could hear us and get back to us. Maybe because of time, we may need to proceed to the next presenter and probably explore opportunity to come back to our Minister of Land, Housing and Urban Development. So as we fix the challenge, may I request, with your permission, Honorable Ministers who have joined in this call and senior colleagues and all protocol observed, kindly if I could call upon the Minister for Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Management in South Sudan, Honorable Peter Mayen Majogdit, to provide his opening remarks as well. Honorable Peter, please.
Can you hear me loud and clear?
Very loud and clear. Please proceed, sir.
Thank you very much. I welcome everybody. The protocol remains observed. Our remarks will be very, very short. Uh, we, as the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Management, recognize the importance of peaceful coexistence among the communities, and of course, given to the political dimensions in the country, and considering some of the outcomes of several dialogue that had come out in place, land remains as a major issue. Women's, children remains to be disadvantaged in their right to have land, and this actually has been one of the major conflicts in a number of society. In view of this, the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Management recognized the importance to resolve issues to do with land, and particularly all the gender-based violence that relates to land. The right for women to have land, to have access to land, remains as a very fundamental right as part of the human right, that every human being have to have that right. I also wanted to say that in behalf of the government of Republic of South Sudan and other colleagues within the ministry is working closely to address issues to do with the gender-based violence and issues to do with human rights where women, children, and other vulnerable groups, including persons with disability, are disadvantaged in certain rights, such as the rights to own the land, rights to have access to have assets. So all this, we consider them as a very important element as far as our rights are concerned. The ministry actually is not just for humanitarian purpose and humanitarian response, but of course we do consider cross-cutting issues, particularly the women's empowerment, because basically women are not tools to be used. However, we do consider that women have a right place in society that deserve to be loved, to be shared, to be part and parcel of that particular society. And I would like to say that, of course, because of my busy schedules, as you know, South Sudan's humanitarian situation is really at a very disastrous areas. And we are trying to manage disasters that we already have at hand, disasters that are still to come. I was extremely busy, but I will be very much happy to follow the participations and perhaps in case another chance we get during the day so that we could be able to make it. In short, generally, I want to reiterate the commitment of the government of the Republic of South Sudan towards gender-based rights means across all the issues. And of course, we really very interesting to look at how best the issues of women possessing lands, their rights in societies could be able to mitigate the conflict and could be able to reduce the disasters and the humanitarian situations in the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Honorable Peter, the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Management. We are very pleased to have had your presence and contribution to this webinar. I think your speech has centrally located the importance of women land rights, indicating strongly that women's land is also a human right. And also, as you have read, body or in nature in this sense. And we really appreciate the support of your office to the current program. And this has really, through this collaboration, we hope we can be able to do more. And we appreciate very much your presence and your contribution. Kindly just, if you can, keep us, stay with us, and we can be able to follow through probably with other emerging questions that may relate directly to the functions of your ministry. Thank you very much. So kindly, yeah, thank you. Kindly allow me also to request the Minister of Gender, Child and Social Affairs in the Government of South Sudan, Honorable Aya Benjamin Warile.
Hello.
Hello, I can hear you very well, and I guess other participants as well.
Honorable ministers, around Governor, Honorable Governor Basan Baralgazal, Mayor of WOW, Resident Coordinator of the United Nations in South Sudan, development partners, all participants, protocol observed. I'm very pleased to address this virtual conference today and share reflections on why women's access to land, housing, and property rights is key for peace building in South Sudan and its development. The Ministry of Gender, Child and Social Welfare of the Republic of South Sudan is mandated to promote gender equality, social justice, and safeguard the rights and welfare of women, children, persons with disability, and other vulnerable groups. The scope of the mandate of the ministry covers gender and women's empowerment, child and social welfare functions. Dear participants, allow me to elaborate in brief why securing women's land for peace in South Sudan needs to be prioritized. The government of South Sudan is committed to secure land rights for everybody, including that of women and girls. Despite the challenges related to recurrent conflicts in South Sudan, the government is already working in collaboration with other ministries on the draft national land policy, an opportunity expected to facilitate access to land by women for peace and development. This is because women bear the burden of conflict, including losing husbands and sons, displacement, loss of land and destruction of houses and other properties, and gender-based violence. It is crucial that women participate in peace-building processes as provided by the UN Security Council Resolution 1325, including facilitating women as agents of change in post-conflict recovery. However, to achieve stable peace security of land for women, including those among IDPs and returnees, young women, widows, and other groups of women in rural and urban areas is critical to succeed. Most communities in South Sudan are patriarchal. Women and girls are perceived as subjects and part of the man's property. Without providing information on their rights and putting in place systems that improve traditional structures and norms regarding securing land, housing, and property rights, there will be no progression. Therefore, this project is timely and relevant because it highlights the status of women's access to land in South Sudan in general through the baseline study conducted by the UN-Habitat, FAO, and NRC. It has provided technical advice to the understanding of gender-responsive land dispute resolution, land management, and land administration to ensure they are gender responsive. Studies highlighted gender gaps in our land governance as follows. Pluralism of tenure, regimes with overlapping formal and traditional land administration systems and responsibilities that are not harmonized, and related services have not been gender responsive. Unclear and costly land dispute resolution mechanism continue to challenge our responsiveness to resolving land conflicts, with women lacking economic capacity to pursue formal justice. Further, internally displaced persons were not willing to leave the POCs due to lack of security of their land, lack of shelter, and fear of insecurity. There is no sex-aggregated data on women's land rights for policy decision. This remains a need and challenge that hinder effective policy decisions and needs to be addressed. There's need for integration of secure women's land, housing, and property rights in other interventions, such as livelihood, house construction, renovation, especially for IDPs and refugees or returnees. I reaffirm my ministry's commitment to continue engaging this initiative and request that it can be upscaled and expanded across the country so that it contributes to the anticipated implementation of the draft national land policy once adopted. Thank you for listening, and God bless South Sudan.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, Madam Aya, for that great presentation. Your presentation has already given us really the commitment of the government in securing women's land. and also guaranteeing rights to sexual and reproductive rights for women, but also for the general population of South Sudan. You've also pointed into some of the gaps that already exist, including the aspects of disaggregation of data and availability, but also access to services which are core to securing women's land in whatever context. And in this case, you rightly indicated how important land is for peace and development and economic empowerment for women and girls, but also how important this is in the context of South Sudan and now in moving forward. The whole aspect of ensuring that we tie different initiatives jointly and ensuring that maybe livelihood, humanitarian in terms of housing and land is very core, and I think also relates strongly with what Honorable Peter, the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Management, also spoke about earlier. And this is the collaboration that we anticipate that this initiative can further strengthen in benefiting for the betterment of women in South Sudan. Thank you very much again. So allow me to go to our next speaker. If our Honorable Commissioner, National Commissioner of Land in South Sudan, Honorable Robert Lokundu, whom we are requesting to share with us the role of the Commission in securing women's land in South Sudan. Honorable Lokundu, please, if you are online, please proceed. I understand we might have challenges of getting our other presenters online. Once they get online, including the Minister in charge of land, we will be able to give them the slot to make their observation and presentation once they come on board. So please ensure that you alert me once you are on board so that I can be able to follow through. So Honorable Lokundu, Robert, if you are online, kindly give us an alert. If you're not there, I would request that we continue with the program so that we can catch up with the time. And now request my colleagues from UN-Habitat and FAO who will be making the main presentation about the initiative that UN-Habitat has been conducting in South Sudan with the funding from UN Peace Building Fund and in collaboration with the NRC, for which this particular webinar has been able to focus on. And they will be able to shed more light on what exactly it has taken to deliver on this program to where we are, challenges and opportunities. So I'll be able to turn back to my colleagues, Grace Grace Nyoka, from a Sudanese colleague who is based in Sudan, in WOW, as well as Michelle, also from FAO, also based in Juba, who will be making this presentation. Over to you. Grace, are you able to connect? Grace and Michelle?
Yeah,
if Grace isn't able to connect, probably we can have Helen and Michelle taking us through the presentation, and hopefully Grace will catch
Evelyn,
up with us.
can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Oh, okay, thank you. So Grace is not here. Hello, everybody. My name is Michelle. I work for the Food and Agriculture Organization in South Sudan. I have been managing this project from the FAO side, together with, in collaboration, of course, with the UN-Habitat. So my colleague Grace was supposed to present the first part of the presentation, but maybe I can start and we'll see how far we come. If she maybe can join us.
You can share the presentation with Helen, also, who is probably a possible backup for Grace. Helen, if you can hear me.
Helen can put up the presentation, maybe?
Yeah.
Hello everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you very much. Yes, I can present what Grace was going to present, and then Michelle can proceed as we had discussed. Okay, our colleagues in South Sudan are really facing internet challenges at the moment, but probably we can proceed and we'll see where they will meet us on the way. So if you'll allow me, I'll just share the screen of the PowerPoint.
That is okay for now.
Colleagues, can you be able to see the screen, please?
Yes, we can see the screen.
You can the view mode.
All right.
That probably will help. Yes. There's something that will appear on your screen. I'm not sure whether it's there on the photo on the far right at the top.
All right.
Maybe just proceed. I think that's okay. It's okay as it is. Please proceed.
Is this better?
That's okay. Yeah, please proceed.
Okay. All right. So again, thank you very much for this opportunity. We had anticipated that this was going to be presented by our colleague Grace, who is on the ground and who is very much in touch with the project. Wow. But I can do that, and then Michelle is going to join in as we wait for Grace. So this project is titled Enhancing Women Access to Land to Consolidate Peace in South Sudan. And it is a project led by the government of South Sudan with technical support from UN-Habitat, the Food and Agricultural Organization, the United Nations, South Sudan, and the Norwegian Refugee Council. This is just an outline of the presentation, so I'll just proceed to the background. And we are all aware that South Sudan is emerging from a civil war that has ravaged the country for several years. And because of that, there are issues that have come up in regards to land and land rights and land access. And in this case, specifically on how women are affected by this issue. The project is coming in to address or to intervene on the recovery and reconstruction efforts, and also contribute to reducing conflicts, poverty that of course has come up because of this war that has ravaged the country for a long time, and also the issue of gender inequality. So with the peace that has returned to the nation for quite a while, there have been a number of internally displaced persons or returnees and refugees who have been returning home voluntarily. But then as they return home, then there are many land-related issues that come up, especially because of when they go back to where they used to live, then they find that the land has either been occupied by other returnees or land has been grabbed by individuals, neighbors, or relatives. And so this has resulted to frequent disputes over land, and women, especially widows, divorcees, separated women, older women, women with disabilities, and girls are very much affected by this issue. The same on proceeding on this issue, our focus is on enhancing access of land to women, and on the same vein, we're saying that women are disadvantaged also by the customs, seeing that much of South Sudan itself is a patrilineal nation. So women are disadvantaged by the customs and traditions that usually discriminate against women. Their ability to access land and obtain security of tenure is usually hampered also because most of them are not literate, and also because of bureaucratic land governance procedures. Women also are neglected when it comes to issues of housing, land, and property. And in fact, in 2019, which is just last year, the female-headed households accounted for 71% of those living in the protection areas in WAU. And this number hasn't quite reduced as of now. So comes in this project by the government of South Sudan with technical support from UN-Habitat, FAO, and NRC, and of course with the local authorities in WAU, the Office of the Governor, and it is trying to enhance the access of women access and rights to land to consolidate peace in South Sudan, meaning that it is recognizing the role of women in peace building efforts. It has 3 outcomes, and one of them is to see that women groups are enhanced to demand and secure accountability from government for women land rights and equitable access to land, improve land management and more gender responsive administrative systems, and also to ensure that policymakers provide effective strategic support for gender responsive land policies. This is through different capacity building exercises that are linked to this project, as we shall see as we proceed. Within the project, there are several studies that have been carried out to look at the status of women access to land. And one of them was a baseline study that was done at the formative stages of this project as it was beginning. And the baseline study revealed that women housing and land and property rights have been neglected for such a long time. And also considering that South Sudan is a patrilineal nation, as I've just elaborated earlier, women have weaker rights to land, as they often they're usually not entitled to land access, or maybe they are allowed to access the land through men, either their husband, their fathers, and those who have children, they are allowed to use the land because they have children. Sometimes when a woman gets divorced, then she might lose this right to land, the access rights to the land. Women also have minimal say in decision-making structures at the local level and at the national level, which usually reduces their confidence to air out their views in as far as the land debate goes. Also, to underline that in some communities, when the husband dies, the widow is usually inherited by her husband's family and retains the use right. And if not, then she loses the right. Another study that was undertaken in this project was one on land administration and management systems. And this study revealed that despite there being a legal framework in South Sudan, there are several gaps that exist, and there is also overlap that exists in the laws, and this usually hampers the smooth running of these processes. Then also there's usually a weak link between customary and statutory systems in administration and management of land. And when you look at the draft national land policy that is being discussed currently, it hasn't yet been adopted. There are several of these gaps that have been identified, and in fact, some laws that have been proposed to come in to fill in this gap. To proceed also, while customary law is not uniform and varies from one community to another, in fact, there are several communities in South Sudan. So the customary law is not uniform and varies, but it seems that community prefer it prefer it compared with the statutory tenure. But then also the customary laws are usually patrilineal and they discriminate against women. Women access and ownership of land. To proceed, another study under this project was one on securing women access to land through formal and alternative land dispute resolution mechanisms. And this one was to look at the formal and also informal mechanisms or avenues that exist to sort out land disputes in South Sudan. And it revealed that, yes, there are numerous avenues, both formal and informal, existing to address land disputes. But then the influence and command of traditional and formal dispute resolution mechanisms have been weakened by the war that has ravaged the nation for a long time. And therefore, this usually makes it difficult for women to access justice when it comes to solving these disputes. Also, some other challenges that are linked to this when we look at the formal and informal dispute resolution avenues is that women are disadvantaged in as far as resources are concerned, because for you to resolve these land disputes, you usually have to cough out some money, and most of them do not have this, so this is a disadvantage. Then also the issue of being illiterate, and also lack of awareness, or this also disadvantages the women. Then the study also revealed that there were 54 cases, double annulation, reported in WOW at that time when the study was being undertaken. At the national level, there were cases identified on land grabbing and boundary disputes that were also reported. So just to these three studies, these ones have not been circulated widely, but then at the moment, the project is consolidating them to release a publication on the same, and this is going to be disseminated once it is done. So proceeding, we have several achievements that have been registered in the project. One of them being that the studies on the baseline report, on the status of women access to land, the study on land management and administration, and the one on land dispute resolution mechanisms were done and complete, but then now we are working on the publication, which we are going to, of course, invite the Council of many land practitioners in the region, of course, with South Sudan being really considered there, and then after it shall be disseminated. Then at the formative stages of this project, there were some workshops that were held to bring in together different stakeholders, that is, NGOs, UN agencies, beneficiaries, or I would call them project partners. And we also had the participation of people from the national and state and county government. Then through different awareness exercises, the project has been able to reach over 405,000 beneficiaries. The number of men and women is indicated there, and this has usually been done through awareness creation campaigns that we shall come to speak to later in this presentation. Then more of the selected achievements under this project. There, we have been able to provide technical support to traditional leaders in WOW, and this is in the form of building capacity of traditional chiefs, which is around 30 chiefs, which is a significant number, bringing them together to discuss on the standardization of the residential certificates that are usually issued to people whenever they are allocated land. So this is a great achievement. These certificates have not yet been printed, but it sure is a is an achievement to the project because it is a tool that helps in the recordation of land, and this is one of the key pillars of this project. Then there were some dialogues that have been held with the Office of the Governor of WOW State, and these ones have been on. They have been very positive in terms of advancing women access to land in WOW. Then several multi-stakeholder workshops have been held, bringing together around 75 persons, including parliamentarians, then representatives of the government of South Sudan, the Land Commission, and land tenure experts. And these ones were to discuss on the draft national land policy to make it more gender responsive. This is also considered a very huge achievement under this project. The project also has been able to produce several messaging materials, as you can see there, with our partner NRC. They were able to produce these materials. These are the information, education, and communication materials that have come in handy to educate people on the issue of women access to land rights. And these ones were disseminated widely using different avenues and platforms. Proceeding, more achievements under this project. The project was able to form the technical committee on land allocation with mandatory percentage of women leaders, representatives, and representative of women groups. So this committee was to look at a participatory planning sort of mechanism of determining how land is allocated to women, and this is considered a great achievement of this project. Then the committee also was able to come up with a criteria for identifying vulnerable women to receive financial support from the State Ministry of Infrastructure and Urban Development to process their land documents. And as we see in the next point, approximately 650 women are going to, have benefited from this to process their land documents and increase or improve their tenure security. Moreover, 90 cases that were identified as landless are being considered for land allocation. Then around 47 beneficiaries also have received individualized counseling on unclarified housing, land, and property issues. And 102 cases have been handed to reliable law firms for representation in courts of law, so that they can also see how to sort out if there is issues to do with land disputes, to see how to sort out this so that they can get their land documents and improve their tenure security. Still on the selected achievements, as we had said earlier, on information awareness, creating awareness on the issue of women access to land. The project has been able to open information centers where women visit and get legal counsel, legal aid to sort out issues of land, housing, and property rights. And this is also considered a major achievement. Some of these centers are also, one of the centers, in fact, is at the Ministry of Plans and Physical Infrastructure in WOW. Then also, radio talk shows have been used. We have been using the Voice of Change, which is a radio in WOW, to disseminate information and key messaging on women access to land. And this is what has helped to build, in fact, very many numbers, to bring this issue to the fore. As you can see here, maybe before I proceed, you can see there's a woman there who is pointing to one of the one of the information centers. There is also a banner that is directing you on how to call some numbers there so that you can access legal aid. And there is also a woman doing an open air campaign in the first picture. Okay. There was a report on global best practices in land policy, giving an outlook of women land rights in policies. This one is done and is complete, and in fact can be disseminated. I think we had touched on some of this as I was elaborating on the previous slide. The technical support has been rendered to this project through, of course, the three partners, FAO, UN-Habitat, and NRC, to Parliamentary Land Committee to build a multi-stakeholder consensus on provision for gender-responsive land policy. I will stop here and invite my colleague, Michelle, from FAO to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Helen. Am I loud and clear?
Yes, Michelle.
Okay, thank you. So we had some challenges which started mid-March, and I think these challenges, a lot of programs and implementations have to deal with these challenges around the world, especially while working in the field. So we had to adapt to these COVID restrictions that were issued by the government, of course, to prevent the spread of the pandemic. There were some activities that we scaled down. One of those was the implementation of land tenure in WOW. We had planned to introduce open tenure to document the land tenure for starting with most vulnerable women, and we had to postpone it or to scale it down. We narrowed it down to preparatory activities. And because FAO's land tenure specialists could not travel to South Sudan or to WOW to implement and do the trainings, we had to just focus on the preparatory activities. There is also the parliamentary scrutiny workshop that we were planning actually after the new parliament was sworn in, or after the land policy, the draft policy had been passed. This would have been substantial support to parliamentarians to dedicate their time into drafting legal sound provisions to implement the draft policy and to strengthen women's land rights and land rights of most vulnerable people in South Sudan. We have drafted the TORs for this workshop. We were just waiting until the new parliament was reconstituted. After these political challenges, we thought we might be able to change it a little bit to support new parliamentarians or the new parliament to review the draft policy. Yes? Okay, to review the draft policy. But of course, this is something that we are still working on, and we will have to wait until the new parliament is reconstituted in order to continue with these activities.
Trial.
And also the development and dissemination of information on women's land rights. We have also scaled it down to preparatory activities, and which will also depend on the constitution of the new government, also in the states. Of course, we need their support, and we want to, this, as Helen has said in the beginning, that this project is government-led, and we are only here to support the government in these activities. And of course, we need someone to lead these activities in order also to create the most possible, or a sound support within the main actors who will ultimately, for example, document land rights or watch over rights of the South Sudanese people. The other thing was that we postponed some activities. This was, for example, the two trainings we had because of these restrictions, and also because of the travel restrictions. We couldn't conduct a training on the responsive land dispute resolution mechanisms. We are planning to do this training in, well, we were planning to do it end of November. Maybe we will find a way to do it in the beginning of December. But this will have to still, we still have to decide, because the pandemic is now, it's not really over, and so we have to see what the restrictions are and how well we can travel in the country, or also the experts coming from outside of the country can travel to South Sudan. Because we still have 2 weeks of quarantine if you come into South Sudan, and this is an issue that, well, we cannot evade. So we will see how this goes. And also the second training was on land management and also land dispute resolution. 2 further activities are halted until the situation changes. Those were also the workshops, the advocacy workshop on protection of women's land rights. We had 3 regional workshops planned, where would happen in adjacent countries. So this would be this would have been so given some support also for the key actors of South Sudan to exchange with regional actors who have also dealt extensively with land issues and especially women's rights to land. The other was an awareness raising workshop on women's land rights, which should have had happened on a national level. But of course, this is also something we had to postpone. Of course, all this adaptation that we did out of, we were trying the best possible to observe our duty to care as foreign agencies in the country. We had to make sure that we support the government with its policies of not spreading the disease, and we had to find ways of how can we still continue to work and to implement the project and disseminate the message that we had on women's land rights to the South Sudanese people, but still being aware of the fact that we cannot go into the field and not organize the workshops. So we opted to conduct awareness campaigns on the radio, like talk shows and key messaging talk shows where people could also call in and ask questions if they had questions related to land rights. And also the key messaging was dedicated to land rights and to women's land rights. Where can they get help, and how are the procedures, and also generally inform them about the legal centers that we had or still have in WOW, and so they could go personally and seek support if they need so. So, and then the community dialogues, we have the housing, land and property seminars, the collaborative dispute resolution skills training. Of course, we had all these trainings adapted, where we had to respect social distancing rules, and also we had to reduce the number of participants in these trainings. Then one way was that, as I said, besides the radio talk shows where people could call in, we also had call centers with active phones and hotlines that were operated by legal counselors and could support and give advice to people having issues with their rights, with the land rights, or it was housing, land and property. So it was a number of rights, or also where they could go and seek further assistance. We also erected billboards along busy main roads that were informing about the project. You can see one of the pictures above where there was the number of the hotline where they could call in. And then we also had open air information dissemination in markets and villages, in which we were using megaphones and sound systems to reach the biggest possible number of people without having to go still respecting COVID's COVID rules, and also what was included in this messaging was the COVID-19 prevention messages, for example, to wash hands or to respect social distancing. And then we had information, communication, and education materials that we distributed along busy streets. Of course, also with respecting all the COVID restrictions issued by the government of South Sudan. So now to the lessons learned. So I think one of the biggest lessons that that came out of this project is that, and this is also something, of course, that we knew, that is well known, that land conflict is something that needs to be addressed to achieve lasting peace, and it has to be included in post-conflict peace-building process. So this issue is at origins of a lot of disputes and related to land and natural resources. So it remains an important issue, and we are convinced that it will remain a key issue in South Sudan. So and we are happy to continue support, and we are happy that we had such a good project that can inform future engagement within this issue. We also, one of the other main lessons is that community-driven dispute resolution is key to the resolution of land disputes and strengthening customary land governance, which means that the communities have to be kept involved in the discussion. It has to be a two-way discussion, top-down and bottom-up, and everybody needs to be included in this, in resolving disputes. And also, because South Sudan is still, there are still a lot of customary laws that are applicable and in certain circumstances, and because these customary laws also change from Payam to Payam or Boma to Boma, so it has to be informed. How to resolve the disputes has to come from the community themselves. So what are their customary laws? Of course, the national statutory laws also apply. So there needs to be a synchronization between those two legal frameworks, regulatory frameworks. Another key lesson is that women, the role of women in peace building is a cornerstone and is paramount to the transition from crisis to stability. Women in South Sudan, they have a very strong voice, and their contribution is very valuable and visible. And we hope that it remains like that. And we are fully behind them to support raising their voice and strengthening their rights. So I think this is something that we have to keep on focusing on, to raise women's voices and to support, also enable them to add their part to stabilizing the peace in South Sudan. Another key lesson learned is that we have to target as well women and men in the land management issues. We have to. It is paramount that we mainstream the gender perspectives into land management and dispute resolution, to also change perception on access to land and ownership. I think this helps to reduce land conflicts and promote peaceful coexistence if everybody understands how gender mainstreaming works and why it is so important, and that women also have to be able to have their rights materialized and to be able to access their rights to own, inherit, or work on land. Another lesson is that an effective land administration system. Sorry, I'm a little bit slow, Helen. I'm coming. An effective land administration system should be accessible to all users, essential to realize security tenure for all, including women and vulnerable groups such as IDPs, returnees, and refugees. The draft national land policy prioritizes fit-for-purpose land management. That means that low-cost registration and leveraging innovative land tools and technologies to reduce costs and overcome administrative hurdles is really important. So there is a need to work on this, the registration part of land, on inventing land tools and technologies, and also reducing the cost of resolving disputes on land issues. So perspective for future engagements. I think we have to continue, and this is something that we learned, to continue follow a multifaceted approach and complex programming of land related to intervention in post-conflict context, and this has to be implemented to affect really change at a large scale. So key priority areas that we thought could be considered to move on is to improve land access through state-led initiatives, such as deliberate land allocation to the landless, resettlement of IDPs, returnees, and refugees. We think that now that peace is coming back to South Sudan, and it's going to the situation is going to stabilize, or is stabilizing, that more returnees will come back into the country, and we think that it is really important that not to create more land disputes, but to try to resolve them and to allocate land to people who can work on this land or live in this land, and so support also returnees and IDPs coming back to South Sudan or resettling within South Sudan. We think that it's also increasing and improving tenure security by adopting conflict-sensitive proposals, land administration, and tools. We have, as Helen has mentioned, we had 2 studies on this, which can inform future engagement on this and improve tenure security. Another future engagement would be in promoting promote large-scale dispute resolution over land by identifying and resolving competing claims, by using the available state and traditional channels. So we think that both go hand in hand, using both channels, and this has to be something that could be worked on. Of course, continuous public education and information campaigns targeting all, but also prioritizing most vulnerable groups who usually don't have access to this information, and which is very key to accessing rights, actually. So we think that this is something that we have to bring the rights out there, especially after a land policy will have been adapted. to disseminate what is in the new draft or what is in the new land policy, what are the priority issues, or what are the rights of the different people of South Sudan. And also providing legal advice complemented by enhancing knowledge and understanding of the legal framework and land rights, especially to women and vulnerable groups. So continuous provision of legal advice is essential, and this is also why we have decided within the project to keep the legal centers open. In 2 legal centers are open, if I'm not mistaken. Grace would have been better to inform us about this. I think it's at the Ministry of Gender. It is one, and the other one is at the Ministry of Land. But please, Grace and Helen, correct me if I'm wrong. But in any case, we are happy to inform how we are continuing to keep this legal centers open, and we will continue to provide the support also to NRC whenever possible. For another future engagement is, of course, we will continue to provide capacity development for government and traditional institutions that govern land. This is, of course, very an important issue, especially after the land policy has been adopted. There will be some changes, and if we have a policy that is adopted, there will be further opportunities to engage with the government and to advance the access to rights. And of course, continued support to the government of South Sudan. We have not included this before, but one of our last studies will be on the way forward after the land policy has been adopted. So we have a national consultant who is currently working on this, and we look very forward to have this the results of the study. And the aim is to draw out a plan on how different actors can engage with the government or support the government on the way going forward, and how can we support the government in implementing the laws and making the rights that are within the draft land policy accessible to the people of South Sudan. We also think, of course, that we will continue to have a multi-stakeholder and partnership approach to this issue to be able to make these rights accessible to the people of South Sudan. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to Michelle and to my colleague Helen for that presentation. I know that our participants who are following this conversation have benefited from now having at least an understanding of what the program or this particular program has been able to do in South Sudan. What are the challenges and the opportunities, but also taking the moment to celebrate the successes of what we have been able to achieve. So if I'm not wrong, I think we've had the opportunity to have our colleagues, honorable ministers joining us from Minister of Lands and the Commissioner of Lands also has joined us. If you are listening to me, Sir, Honorable Michael, as well as Honorable Robert Lokundu, probably I will be able to give you the moment now to share with us your remarks. Unfortunately, we had the challenge of connecting and we had to proceed. So with your permission, if I could allow our Honorable Minister in charge of Ministry of Land, Housing and Urban Development in South Sudan to make his remarks, please, if you are listening to me.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Very well, sir. Please proceed.
Okay, thank you. In the first place, I want to congratulate ministers in the government of South Sudan and the nations in South Sudan, donor agencies, and development. I thank you for giving this opportunity to the Minister of Lands, Housing and Urban Development in South Sudan to present few remarks during this webinar. My ministry is responsible for the development of land, housing, survey, and the physical planning policy in collaboration with other government agencies. The ministry has developed the draft policy and draft national housing policy, which will be validated for consideration to be adopted as soon as the Legislative Assembly is in place. South Sudan is central to national building and is a major contributor to sustainable development of the people in South Sudan. We understand that land is also key for peace building and can be a source of conflict between communities, states, and nations. Our recent efforts of developing the draft national land policy offer us a major opportunity to strengthen our land governance and management and provide better policies that secure access to land for women, youth, and vulnerable populations as detailed in the draft national land policy. The ministry is focusing on several key areas to improve land governance in South Sudan, including modernizing land registration processes and improving their transparency, accountability, and sustainability, establishing systems for land use planning at the national, state, and local and procedures governing land expropriation, improving institutional accountability in the management and governance of land, providing clear provisions on equality to access to land, including women's land right, and efforts being undertaken by the ministry. We are confident that we will be on track with land policies, structures, and systems in place that ensure effective use and realization of the value of land for the people of South Sudan. Will, among others, support fit for purpose land management, including the demarcation and mapping of community boundaries for land held under customary tenure, rehabilitation, reorganizing, authenticating, and computerizing existing land records, and of mechanisms for the incorporation of land information in the land information system. The draft national land policy proposes the development of the Community Land Act that will clarify the difference between public and community land, describe the rules and procedures, the expression of community lands, describe applicable provisions to realize women's rights to land under customary land tenure, and describe land administration systems for community lands. My ministry finds this key to securing land rights for all, including women's, and rights for peace and development in South Sudan. Effective implementation of policies must be backed up with strong judicial systems and processes that ensure land rights and protect it according to the law. This is really core to secure women's access to land, especially for IDPs and returnees who are faced with unique challenges to secure back their land. I would like to thank our partners, UN-Habitat, FAO, and the NRC for continuing to support the ministry's efforts and other structures towards improving governance of land. And I commend the implementation of the project enhancing women's access to land to consolidate peace in South Sudan, which we find timely and responding to our immediate and long-term needs. Access to land for women and IDPs and returnees in particular is key to ensuring economic empowerment of women, recovery, and their sustainable development. Through this project, over 600 women, mainly and returnees in WOW, have acquired secure land documentation. These are among other women who receive legal counsel on housing, land, and property rights issues. The capacity of traditional authorities, community leaders, and communities in gender response, land conflict, dispute resolution has also been strengthened. The studies conducted by this project on the status of women's access to land, the land administration system, and dispute resolution mechanisms provide us with the key information to support and improve on our collaboration, and hope we can scale up this project to cover the whole country. I call on other donors and partners to support this effort and build synergies required to enable us deliver better and at scale. I would like to sincerely thank the United Nations Peace Building Fund Secretariat for funding this project that is improving women's access to land in South Sudan, and for its partnership with UN-Habitat and FAO towards making this possible. I reaffirm my support to this initiative and confirm that this is very crucial to the reconstruction of South Sudan, our newly independent nation, and putting it on the sustainable development path. I thank you. Over.
Thank you very much, Honorable Michael, the Minister of Land, Housing and Urban Development, for your opening remarks. It's coming a little late, but we are very pleased really for the collaboration that the UN-Habitat, FAO, as well as NRC, and working with the various institutions and structures of land governance, we've been able to work very closely jointly with the other ministries that have been represented here. Just to remark that an observation in view of your remarks, we really appreciate the centrality that you've given through your ministry to the development of the draft national land policy, and the opportunities that we have been able to explore together, particularly with the opportunity we had to host a discussion and the opportunity that lies ahead in its implementation, hoping that maybe there will be opportunities to have this adopted and present women at a national scale the opportunity to realize secure land for peace in South Sudan. And when you're talking about gender, you have rightly noted that it's securing tenure rights for all, for which women rights are also included. So thank you very much. Allow me, please, with your permission.
Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes, yes, I can hear you,
actually, my ministry is busy, so he delegated me. I'm George Richard.
Thank you so much, George. We appreciate. Thank you so much for that, and thank you for letting us know. Thank you. Pass our regards, Minister, and our appreciation.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, allow me to colleagues and participants following the webinar to now introduce Honorable Robert Lokundu, the National Land Commissioner in South Sudan, who will also share with us his perspective about the role of the Commission in securing women land rights in South Sudan. Land Commissioner Robert, please.
Thank you very much. In the first place, I would like to convey my participants. It has been quite a long time we are trying to connect, but it's good that finally we are there. This webinar is really timely at a time when South Sudan is engaged in implementation of the revitalized peace agreement. And 2 days back, we just concluded the national dialogue where issues related to land were actually central. So these people are at par with what these international bodies, the UN-Habitat and others are actually involved in. Well, in the first place, this conference is very much important, the webinar conference. And as I said, it's timely. We have been engaged in a number of discussions, and we know the new political and legal systems is tilting towards a representation of women in different, sectors, be it land and whatever. 35% is being given to women, and as a national dialogue, the youth are given about 20. So this is over 50. So they're asking what is left for them. But anyway, these are actually groups that should be empowered, because South Sudan now has a population of about youth. And youth are the people who are actually engaged in the implementation of wars, though instigated by the politicians and all people. Coming back to the question of access to land with regards to women and youth, we have actually finally put an argument to rest as who owns the land, the issue of ownership. As you know, all sub-Saharan Africa, Mozambique, and South Africa, or Jamaa in Tanzania talks about the land being owned by the people of the Republic of Tanzania, and the custodian is the president, with the background of the African Socialism. Now in South Sudan, people have unanimously all states that the land is owned by the communities. And it's owned by the communities. And how it is going to be used, the usage is actually regulated by the state in accordance with the law and the constitution. We don't say the government, because the government is, at the moment it is the SPLM government. Next we make another party of the same, but the state remains in the state succession. We have 3 landmarks that we really need to anchor into arguments of access to land. Number one, as I've said, the issue of land ownership is now laid to rest, following the UN guidelines and framework, the African Union guidelines and framework in relation to land policy initiative. Secondly, land policy. When we talk of the land, opposed to land politics involves a lot of locking of horns, brushing of shoulders, and people are sometimes neck to neck with certain issues. But policy is what actually lays the foundation of land regime in a country that will attract investors, will give the rights of women and the youth to access land, and other policies will also actually follow from that landmark. As have been argued, we inherited the colonial British system of classification of land. The crown land is now the public land. The native land is the community land and private land. But all these things should be actually regulated by law. If you say public land, a person, a lay person, will not actually understand what is public. Community land is being misused and sometimes corrupted in the process, because community land, to the understanding of the people here, the community land is owned by the chief and his cohorts, but that is not really the argument. So whatever argument you do, it should not be based on intuition or guesswork. It has actually to be anchored by law in line with the constitution. The other thorny issue is argument, women access or youth access to land. Judiciary. Judiciary is a very important organ of the government. The executive executes. If you don't have a strong judiciary, whatever we are doing is all ephemeral, and it's just a complete, oblique kind of a situation. Good judiciary, which is credible, independent, and impartial, will not be able to execute these laws and actually give the law of the land. And so we need really to have a very strong judiciary. And not only that, within the judiciary, we always recommend most of the cases you go to board, almost 3% of the cases are related to land, whether dispute, whether inheritance, whether women's rights, access to land, land grabbing, name them. So we have specialized courts. These courts will be land courts, and if we want to advance the rights of women, we could also have family courts, so that the negative past historical, situation that women have been going through will be actually settled in the court of law. As I've said earlier, access and rights to land is dependent on security. When you talk of security, it doesn't only talk of security of life or limb, but it includes property. And land is actually one of the most security. So we have to secure the life, the limb of all the people, including women and youth, and then their property. The guns are being had to kill the land. Even the pastoralists, with their cattle, they either arm themselves to fight or to defend their cattle. So whatever properties, either movable or resources, they have to entirely depend on security. And security is not to be a common citizen. It is the government that actually maintains security to all this. As we have entered into the implementation of the agreement, with some nitty-gritties here to be done, other groups are still holding out, especially in Central Equatoria. And this is quite dangerous, because when you say it is peace, let it be silent completely. So we hope the political actors will endeavor to do that. Going forward, with the national conference, the issue of land is central. We need to have law and order. We need to have the land policy, which is now the draft and the first should be passed. And then we need to introduce land discipline in all the institutions and training of the law enforcement agents. I'm thankful to this discussion, and I hope we continue to pursue this so that the rights of these groups, in relation to land in this new and young country. Finally, I thank you all for listening. Hope to engage in more discussions of this kind. And with the if it disappears, then it will be face-to-face discussion that is actually more valuable than carrying out such kind of conferences.
Thank you very much, Honorable Robert Lekundu, the Commissioner of Lands in South Sudan, and for your remarks. Very critical in terms of why it's so critical to have this national land policy draft under discussion, and hopefully that will be finalized. Is alignment to the constitution also is key, and the enforcement and ensuring its implementation, particularly in access to justice when it comes to resource through the courts. And you have given us very good points to think about, and it is our hope also through this program and opportunities in the future for collaboration or strengthening our collaboration, we can further reflect on some of your recommendations, which I think are very, very progressive and could present better opportunities in further strengthening women land rights access in South Sudan, but also securing land for everyone in South Sudan. So we really appreciate that we've had the opportunity to listen from both yourself as well as George, who represented the Honorable Minister from the Ministry of Lands. And now we will get to another session. I know time-wise we are not doing very well, so we'll try it the best way we can. And I request probably our colleagues who will be sharing their thoughts to be a little bit brief. But we also hope that we can have an interactive session. So for those who have questions, kindly post them on the chat so that we can also be able to find opportunities to respond to them. And hopefully you find this session very valuable. So before we open it up for any further conversations, I want to call on our colleague Anne Ngunu, who is an information counseling and legal assistant specialist at NRC, to share with us what does it mean exactly to have this strategic partnership and the role of the INGO and civil society in securing land rights for peace in South Sudan. Anne Ngunu, your floor is yours.
Thank you, Evelyn, and thank you, participants, for sparing some time to listen to us in this session. And I'm just going to take you through the strategic partnerships and the role of INGOs and national NGOs and CSOs in securing women's rights for peace in South Sudan. So basically what I've been looking at is the need and the benefits of partnering with local NGOs and CSOs and the international NGOs, referring to NRC in this particular project, where we partnered with FAO and UN-Habitat to promote women's land rights and provide further support to the government in implementation of this project. Kindly go to the next slide, and I'll keep it short because of time. So when we think about the reflections and the benefits of partnering with local and international NGOs and CSOs, we think about the long-standing presence of these organizations in South Sudan and the reach they have within the community. Through the presence in South Sudan, they have a lot of institutional knowledge and relationships that they've built with different stakeholders like the government and also within the community. And they are very aware of the local and national context and are able to reach hard to reach areas. And in particular in this project, some of the cases that were being addressed in terms of securing land tenure were in the areas of Raja in Western Bargazel, in the deeper parts of Raja. And specifically for NRC, which was implementing in this project together with FAO and UN-Habitat, we've been in South Sudan since 2004, and specifically in our information counseling and legal assistance, we have our services provided by program staff with legal expertise across 9 static locations, and ranging over 30 to 100 program staff specifically on legal aid and assistance. Another benefit you get and need of working with local and international NGOs and also CSOs is that they have specific expertise. And in this particular project where we were seeking to secure women's land rights for peace in South Sudan, most of the issues we know pertaining women access to land are very complex in the context of South Sudan, as highlighted by the minister and also the commissioner. And they're interconnected with many factors. Whether it comes to issues of the youth, there's land involved and so on. And the solution cannot be tackled solely by one institution or even the government alone. It requires a range of stakeholders, and this includes INGOs and CSOs. And in NRC specifically, we have the ICLA program is one of the few programs that directly addresses land issues faced by displaced women, and including issues of inheritance, legal documentation, in terms of counseling, legal assistance, and so on. So through our specific expertise, we were able to come in and also give value to the services provided on top of what was provided by the government, on top of what was provided by FAO and also UN-Habitat, and a multitude of several stakeholders that were all involved in carrying out this project. Another thing we have to think about is the specific role of CSOs and NGOs in coordination spaces, in outreach, in mobilization, and in advocacy on issues of housing, land, and property, and specifically this project on land issues and on gender issues in South Sudan. And this is demonstrated by their capacity in program and project design, and even in the execution and implementation at the local and national and even regional levels. So, I mean, as NRC in WOW, we were part of the technical working group, both in the state level and even nationally. And I know some of the participants are members, and they can attest to that. And we were also able to partner together with FAO and UN-Habitat with other local NGOs operating in WOW, like the South Sudan Law Society and the Greater Barghazel Land Alliance and the Women Development Group that worked hand in hand to ensure we mobilize, to ensure that we are able to provide legal aid, and especially in reference to legal assistance cases that required representation in courts. Another main issue that has been raised by I think most all the presenters that have come before me is the sustainability for the communities. This project is meant to ensure that women land rights is for peace and development in South Sudan. Women access to land cannot only be understood as a humanitarian, from the humanitarian perspective. And currently, if you look at the technical working group that's operating under the South Sudan Protection Cluster, which is a humanitarian coordination forum, we have to think about what's next beyond the humanitarian scope. Land issues fall outside the scope of purely humanitarian actions and interventions, and they require the gradual shift to a development-oriented and government-led coordination forum. So it's important to involve the local actors to ensure that there's sustainability within the communities together with the government, in collaboration with the government. And lastly is basically empowerment. Through this project, it's been a multilateral approach project of interventions. And I can say the capacity of all the actors involved, and including specifically with the CSOs and NGOs and us as NRC, our capacity has been built, interacting with the government, interacting with FAO, interacting with UN-Habitat. And it's important that we continue involving local actors and even international actors as an inclusive approach to to peace building and development. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Anne. We really thank you for the contribution to this session and for our partnership. Certainly that these results can be attributed to the role of the NGO, civil society, including the grassroots women and communities, has been very powerful in delivering the successes that we've talked about. So we really appreciate that. So we're going by the program, and probably I'm not sure whether everybody was able to see the current program, but I would like to call the representation of UNPBF to this moment to share with us, and that is Benjamin Moore, who is the UN Special Assistant Coordination and Peace Building Specialist in South Sudan. And after that, we'll be able to come back to our other presenters that they're still able to share with us. So Benjamin, if you could take the floor, please. Hello, Benjamin Moore, are you there?
Well, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. Please proceed.
Very good. I'm out of jail. There was a mute function that I'm quite unmute myself. Apologies for that. Thank you all, Honourable Minister, representatives from FAO and from Habitat, all protocols observed, thank you for giving me the opportunity to briefly sort of go over the PBF and the importance of PBF support and cooperation with the government of South Sudan today. So I've actually shared a PowerPoint.
We seem to have lost Benjamin. I hope we can get back to you. Hello?
Yes, hello.
Yeah, please. You would like to share your screen?
There we go. Thank you. Okay, so I'll go through, I hope you can see my screen. I'll go through this presentation very briefly. Basically, the UN PBF is the UN's instrument to prevent conflict, to mitigate conflict during escalation, and to recover conflict from after it has occurred. And the PBF in South Sudan very much engages in that post-conflict setting. In the past 2 years, 2017 to 19, the PBF globally approved about $500 million worth of projects in 58 countries, and has a full-fledged scope of projects, from supporting peace agreements to community-based peace building, and to catalyze processes and resources in sort of risk-tolerant fashion. In 2019, about 200 million new funds were released and approved in 34 countries. South Sudan was a recipient of about 12 million in 2019. So we have an element of the PBF is that 40%, and I heard this through the presentations from all speakers, the importance of gender mainstreaming and gender sensitivity, and about 40% of all people investments go to specific gender markers in projects. So I'll go to the next slide here. There's a brief snapshot here of where the PBF operates, and in the middle of the screen you'll see South Sudan. This is reflecting 2019 only. If you look at the total active portfolio, it's about $20 million currently. So the main strategy for PBF is it's a 4-year strategy. They have an investment goal of about 500,000 a year, or 1.5 billion over the strategic period. They are working to up that target and mobilize resources in order to release funding for critical peace building projects throughout the eligible countries. There's about 40 countries. They say here before it was 58, but it's around 40 to 58. You have an important area here, the focus areas that I'd like to focus on a little bit, and that is support to an implementation of peace agreements with dialogue and peaceful coexistence, re-establishing basic services, and showing that peace and absence of conflict can bring with it peace dividends. And this is very much sort of in the spirit and many of the approaches that the PBF in South Sudan take. This is where we support or have support from the Peace Building Fund. The idea with the Peace Building Fund project is that it's catalytic. So for $1 million of PBF funding, the idea or the aspiration is that an additional 10 million will be mobilized through other resources, through other partners, to really scale up initiatives. So Peace Building Fund project not meant to go into NGOs and agencies and government regular operations. They're meant to be risk tolerant, be timely, be innovative, and try pushing the boundaries of what's possible and what is good, taking more risk than what would usually be accepted in other contexts, and thereby scale up and hopefully achieve greater results. So this is just sort of a global overview of the Peace Building Fund in South Sudan. We have framed a PBF engagement through what we call the Cooperation Framework. This is a nationally led or nationally aligned document. It builds on the experiences from the Interim Cooperation Framework, which was valid in 2016 to 2018. The UNCF is aligned to the national development priorities as well as the SDGs. It's been developed in consultation with partners, meaning government, donors, NGOs, the UN, etc., and has 4 thematic areas of interest. You'll see priority area 1, which is building peace and strengthening governance, improving food security and recovering local economies, strengthening social services and empowering women and youth are the other 3 priority areas. From 2016 onwards, delivery under the UN Cooperation Framework has grown from about 120 million to 220 million, distributed along the 4 priority areas that I mentioned, and the steady growth has been seen largely in the wake of reduction of violence, where development partners and development projects have been able to be implemented more sustainably, and that growth has really benefited implementation and delivery. This is sort of the UN strategy and the overall approach to activities in the country, narrowing down in terms of peace building and the PBF. We have a strategic document that's anchored in the UN Cooperation Framework, and focuses on the first priority area that I mentioned before, building peace and strengthening governance. 2 main objectives being building trust and sustaining peace, with 4 thematic areas that all projects fall under: dialogue and reconciliation, rule of law, women and youth, conflict related to displacement and returns. The UN support to South Sudan is aligned with and supports national frameworks. So we're looking at the National Development Strategy that I mentioned before. We're looking at the Peace Agreement axis, as well as various needs assessments and government-led strategies, such as the Peace Building Needs Assessment for Greater Jonglei, developed by the then First Vice President Tabandeng, now Vice President. Is very much anchored sort of within the national frameworks that I spoke about, as well as the UNCF. All projects signed off and approved by government. I think someone mentioned that earlier. This is a key differentiating factor between the PBF and other instruments of the UN, that this really has to be led by and implemented together with government and national stakeholders. The next sort of element we have in terms of UN support to sustaining peace is that we're applying for a new tranche of funding, or a new period of funding, which is called, so the process is to apply for re-eligibility, and the UN together with government is leading that process through a technical sort of application process and developing background documents for an application. for a period of about 5 years. The way that the PBF works is that you have two modalities, you could say. One is a direct country allocation, which is not available to South Sudan currently because we're not eligible, as I mentioned just now, but we have been in the past. It follows UNCF priorities, it follows the peace-building plan. The projects are developed together with UN as well as partners and government entities. Usually projects are about 2 to 5 million and can last up to about 3 months. The project that we've talked about today falls under the Gender Promotion Initiative. There's another promotion initiative also called the Youth Promotion Initiative, and these projects are usually a bit smaller in terms of dollar amounts and a bit shorter. And the idea here is that you can have quick impact pilot projects on peace building that are less costly and are shorter in implementation period. The process for applying for the competitive window is highly competitive. There's about 500 applications for every round of applications, and usually about 20 to 30 projects go through every year. Just a quick overview, and I'll skim through this. We have about 7 or 8 active projects in South Sudan, totally valued at around 22 million, that fall under the 4 priority areas that I mentioned before: supporting dialogue, strengthening rule of law, protecting and empowering women and youth, and reducing conflict by displacement. I won't go into the details of each of the projects here. I'm happy to share information on request. As I mentioned briefly before, the South Sudan is in the process of applying for re-eligibility to the Peace Fund. So currently we're not able to apply for funding, because we, as a country, South Sudan, want to be part of that club, you could say, to access funding, to access the support that comes with the Secretary General's fund, as well as the resources and technical expertise as well. So we've started the process. Government has made a request to the Secretary General. That request is followed by a technical application, which includes a country snapshot. So basically a context analysis. We're looking at a conflict analysis, including key drivers of conflict and peace structures. So what traditional mechanisms in the community and at the national level have helped resolve conflict in the past, or even prevent conflict. How can we strengthen those? How can we build on those structures? A roadmap for peace building and gaps. So what is currently going on? How do we ensure that PBF complements government, donor, NGO, and other initiatives that are ongoing, so that we can carve out a particular niche for the PBF in terms of that critical support that it can provide. A number of key priority areas will be developed, and that'll be derived from the analysis that I mentioned before. And then 2 or 3 initial project concept notes will be submitted alongside the application for consideration for funding. So sort of just basically, this is sort of an overview of the, let's see, stop sharing. This is a basic overview of PBF engagements in South Sudan, what the PBF does from a global point of view. And what's really important for us here in the resident coordinator's office and with the support of government is that these projects and the frameworks that we use are inclusive. Somebody said that women's rights are indeed human rights, and this is very much to the core of what the PBF is. Inclusion is not just inclusion for the sake of inclusion. It needs to be a meaningful participation as well, and that needs to be strengthened. That needs to be emphasized. National ownership is key. Government leadership, community leadership, organizations of various kinds, state institutions at the state level. Incredibly important that there's leadership, ownership, and buy-in, and that international community and other partners can support. But national ownership is key. Gender sensitive was mentioned as a key element of this, and this project I think is a very good example of how to do that. One question that I would ask the floor for discussion perhaps is we've seen this project start and be discussed at its inception. Land rights in South Sudan is a very sensitive topic. We were advised against it. People were very critical of engaging with this project. FAO and Habitat led the initiative forward, took it forward with government, and have succeeded. Now, what have we succeeded at? We've succeeded at demonstrating a mechanism, setting up a process for transparent and fair land allocation and land tenure, claiming land tenure. How can we scale that mechanism up? How can we improve on it? How can we make it even more participatory, even more inclusive, and even more transparent? So we've come a long way, and it was a difficult project to begin with. We've done everything that we could from all sides of the spectrum, the international partners, the donors, community, as well as government side, and we have results to show for it. But how can we move forward? How can we scale this up? And how can we make it a sustainable approach to accessing land for women and vulnerable populations? I'll stop there. I think I've already spoken a bit too much. I hope it was useful, and I'll stand by for any questions or comments when relevant. Thank you.
So much, Benjamin, and on behalf of the partnership for this project, we really thank you and your office for the accompaniment, the support, the resources. You've raised important aspects in terms of why it is so important to really secure land and ensure stronger governance institutions of land so that women can be able to benefit, communities can feel more secure, and also as an ingredient that is so important for peace and stability. So we really appreciate that. We're looking at opportunities to further continue and expanding this program. And I think, as alluded in the minister's speech and those who've spoken, I think already there is some action. So we really appreciate and glad that you can you can still a possible question. So let me request for or negotiate for some time, because I know we are really out of time, but I know how important it is also for us to continue with this conversation, and particularly in giving colleagues, particularly from the administration of institutions within WOW, to share with us, including the voices of who really this was to be able to support. That's the grassroots women, IDPs and returnees, what exactly the experiences are. So with your permission, the ministers in this meeting, but also from all the participants, if you could allow us to proceed maybe for about 30 more minutes and try to see how best we can be able to cover and to allow room for question and answers. I know some probably have come in through the messages. Helen is taking that up, and we can be able to get into that and respond to Benjamin's question. So kindly, with your permission, I would request to proceed. And in our next presenter will be a woman who is also a project participant, who has had opportunity to interact directly with this program, project activities on the ground, and her perspective and experiences are important in terms of demonstrating whether we are on track and what opportunity really this project has presented to her and other women in the community of WOW. So I'll ask Lucia Peter to share her perspective, and please be very brief so that we can also get to the other leadership. Thank you very much, and welcome, Lucia.
أنا مبسوط بالنهاية أنا قعدت في جمعيات.
So you'll be able to support us in case there'll be any need for either translation or further support. I know she has had one of our colleagues' offices and the machinery to enable her participant. Kindly, group, if you could support.
Thank you. I just want her to finish and then I'll wrap it up after. Thank you.
Thank you.
Asad Maksud Wallace, yao يتاب ده كله أترى في يال جاي لنا جاي كويس نمني لربنا عشان يساعدنا قدام نكونوا كمان يتاب بدانا ده ربنا يساعدنا ويساعد يال الجاب لنا كويس. أنا مبسوط جدا. صوتي للنسوان أنا بقول انتوا نسوان شدوا حيلكم في المجاهيل. هسه نحن ما عندنا محلات نقول فوق قاعدين ساكن، نحن قاعدين نقول ساكن ما عندنا محلات، نحن تعبانين في النهاية ما عندنا محلات نحن نقول فوق. أنا ما تدري شو العقوبة اللي ممكن تكون فوق برد مياه أكل ما في ياو بس نحن قاعدين زي الليلة من اللي ربنا الجابنيني ونقول للنسوان شيلوا حيلنا مورا حرب ده يا بدان فيه الجاهلين زي أنا قاعد قدامكم داسة أنا بشوفكم انتوا يالي أنا مبسوط جدا وربنا يبارككم وربنا يوديكم قدام لأنه بلدنا مجاهدة بسيط ده يا عيال شيلوا حيلكم فوقكم عشان تلعبوا بعد السكر معكم وكلامي ما كثير. شكرا.
I feel so happy for the program, and she was around when she was not having. She had her piece of land earlier on, but she did not get. She was so worried that someone would have taken the piece of land away. But when this project came, she was so excited because right now she's having her land document with her, and she's only crying to the project that the project will not end because not only her who is in need here, and this project right now is only helping the women in WOW, and not even all the women in WOW right now who are in need are helped. So she's only crying for the people up there that if they can continue with this project and to cover the whole of South Sudan, because for them women, we are neglected. Our rights are not being recognized, but this is the first time that she's having this kind of document in her hand. So she's very happy, and she's saying that God will bless all of us, all the people who are responsible for this project, and she's crying the project will not end because it's very important. It's helping the vulnerable women, the widows, and those who are separated, those who are separated from their husbands, and also those who not manage to get the land document because it's very, very expensive. Herself could not believe that she could even have the land document with her. So she's very happy and she remains happy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Peter, Lucia Peter, for your testimony and for sharing your experiences in terms of how this project has been of support. And I know your prayer is also to see other women IDPs and returnees and those living in those protection camps can also get support. So we really appreciate, and this is just one but of the voices that this project has been able to, shared, but there are many others, and for those who will be interested can also get in touch with us for more information and also the experiences. I know that the role of the traditional chiefs has also been very critical in supporting and facilitating women land access and security on the ground, but also for communities. And they play a very important role in collaboration also with the formal institutions in advancing land rights for women. So we have the pleasure of having and the privilege of having our traditional chief from WOW, Mr. Madut Kon Mawien, who will also be able to share with us the experiences also from this project as regards the role of a chief, a traditional chief, in this process. Mr. Madut, kindly.
شيب نو أجل واو فصور بتاعي بجمل سلاطين شوف واو سلاطين في جنوب السودان كله فنينا في واو أي شيخ في أي مدينة واو كله ولا غرب كذال واقف مع حكومة وواقف مع متمة وواقف نظامات بيجي بسات بيجي بابرا حكومة لانه أنينا فاين بتاع حكومة فهي أنينا بسيط في حكومة وأنينا بجيب مع منظمات ومنظمات أنينا مقصود منه لأن منظمات بسات في أي طرق البسات بطريقة بتاع بسات بطريقة بتاع أكل والبسات بطريقة بتاع راضي والبسات بطريقة بتاع هدوء فأنينا بقول لسه مواطن في جنوب السودان ولسه تعبان شديد لأنه ما في حاجة والناس لسه ما ثبت كويس في حالة بتاع السلام هسه أنا داير أي منظمة في حاله قاعد بس هذا كله واصل قدام لان بنسا ناس لسه تعبانين وكل عندك كلام كثير نينا في منظمات واقف في اراضي وبس شديد ومنظمات واقف في مسار بتاع جهه تاكل كمان اننا دايرينه ومنظمات بس هذا في عدوي اننا دايرينه واننا بشكر على الحكومه ومنظمات جاي بعبر الحكومه وجاي يساعد مهتمه الموجود في مدينه واو والموجود في جنوب السودان. شكرا.
Thank you. The chief is telling us that he's not only talking as a chief of alone, but is representing the chiefs of WOW, that is Western Barakazal, and a lot to their lives. The project have trained them, have impacted skills on land management and administration, and also on land dispute resolution because of the training that I've received. Above all, he's so grateful because of the standardized certificate, residential certificate, because initially each chief could have their own certificate and designing their own ways. But right now, everything is like come into uniform. It's really something that is so great, and they're so happy to use that certificate. And also, he's appreciating the project, that this project it has come for a short time, but would really request that if the project could continue, because now the chiefs that are helped in this training are only within WOW state. But again, the people who are beyond, beyond our municipal and the within Western Barakazal, and even in South Sudan, that there are chiefs that need to be helped in with this knowledge. Reason being that you see that most of the chiefs are not synthesized because that they're not aware, they're not educated that women have the right to get land. But now they themselves now they're satisfied and they're able to help even the women to get this piece of land. I mean, to get a document for that piece of land. The vulnerable women themselves, they're able to identify these women. So now they needed this knowledge, same knowledge to also be extended to other states in South Sudan. They're very happy and they're ready to work with any organization that is willing to work with them. And so long as the organization will bring an impact, just like what this program brought an impact to them. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the chief, Mr. Madut, and for his representation of the experience of the other chiefs, traditional chiefs who have participated in this project. We really appreciate our collaboration with the chiefs and also with the other institutions. As I said, they also sit at a very central point in making it a reality to secure women's land in their areas of jurisdiction, as well as in collaboration with their other partners. So kindly allow me also to put this project also in the context of our collaboration with the Office of the Mayor of WOW Municipal Council, Honorable Julio Emmanuel Mama, who was not able to join us directly in this webinar, but is ably represented by the Deputy, Mr. Oliver Luis Adiri, who is the Deputy Mayor. So Mr. Oliver, if you could kindly take the floor. Hello? Kindly speak closer to the mic so that we hear you well.
Okay. First, I would like to thank honorable ministers, all the participants in this conference. Please, your attendance is observed. Good evening. On behalf of the Honorable Mayor of our Council, please allow me to register my timely thanks and sincere appreciation to UN-Habitat and its partners who have come up with this very important initiative to assist vulnerable women who lost their husband and members to secure for them land documents, especially land lease document, free of charge certificate and residential certificate, and other land documents from different institutions. In fact, the administration of Wow Municipal Council is working very hard supporting such project to make sure women deserve legal documents. As we all know, that land conflict has become one of the major problems facing women in South Sudan. NRC, FOA, and UN-Habitat are working very hard to make sure that poor women or the vulnerable women are accessible to land legal documents. Indeed, the local authorities in Wow Municipal Council are supporting women to have a legal right process and hold documents as their own belongings for the development of this country. Thank you very much. Meet you again. I am Peter Munukpong, acting mayor of Wow Municipal Council in this occasion. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and we really appreciate the support we have received and the partnership with the Mayor's Office. Pass our regards and our sincere appreciation for this partnership, and we are very pleased that you are also finding value in this collaboration, and particularly in the advancement of the objective of securing women's land for peace in South Sudan, and particularly in the context of your work. Thank you very much for that. Allow me to have our last presenter before we go to any question and answer. And this will be a special moment to have the governor of Western Bargazal State to share with us what exactly this has been in terms of opportunities to work on land. And this will be Governor Honorable Sarah Cheto Hassan. The floor is yours, and thank you for joining. Welcome.
Okay, thank you. My name is Joseph Juma, the Director of Survey, Western Baralkazal State, representing the Governor of Western Baralkazal State. Honorable Ministers of the Government of South Sudan, His Worship, the Mayor of Wow, the Resident Coordinator of United Nations in South Sudan, donor agencies, development partners, greetings from the Governor of Western Baralkazal. Apologies from the Governor of Western Baralkazal State, Honorable Sarah Cheto Hassan, who was not able to join this important session because of a prior commitment. On her behalf, I am pleased to share a few remarks on how my office has been working with our partners, UN-Habitat, FAO, and NRC. In this project, an achievement relies in enhancing women's land right to consolidate peace in South Sudan. Land is important to the people of Wow, as is for other states in South Sudan. Securing women's land is not just important for their economic empowerment, but to reduce gender-based violence, supports reconstruction and recovery process, and sustainable development of countries in transition from conflict. Western Barakazal State is host to IDPs, people in protection of civilians camps, POCs, and returnees. This makes land issues key to our work to ensure voluntary settlement of those affected in rural and urban areas. This UN-Habitat FAO project funded by UN Peacebuilding Fund and the partnership with NRC has been useful in many ways, especially in highlighting the status of women's access to land, educating them on their rights and relevant processes, establishing resource centers providing outreach service on land matters for women and local communities. These have been unique initiatives and contributions which need to be duplicated in all parts of our communities. Everyone should have access to land. The loss of land documentation during conflict and displacement has affected these populations and especially women, most of whom lost their spouses, brothers, fathers during the war. Being that South Sudan is a colonial nation, many of these women are left to fend for themselves because the customs, traditions, norms, and ethics discriminate against them. Hence, many widows divorcee separated women, amongst others, vulnerable women are left landless and often need support from such projects. Furthermore, the process of replacing lost land, housing, and properties rights documentation is lengthy and often requires resources. This project has strengthened the role of traditional leaders, local council, courts, and other concerned authorities, which the aim of which their work more gender responsive. The Office of the Governor has collaborated with supported this project, providing us with unique opportunities to support reconciliation processes and provide a foundation upon which war-affected population, especially women, IDPs, and returnees, can begin to rebuild their lives. This project is helping us some of the fundamental barriers to durable solution for peace and stability and empowerment of women in WOW and in South Sudan in general. The state government of Western Barakazal is satisfied with the progress made by this project, despite the COVID-19 challenge, and hope more partners can come on board and support such efforts. Thousands of women, IDPs and returnees have been from this project, benefited from this project, and through national initiatives, we will have better governance of land in South Sudan. I thank you.
Thank you very much to the Office of the Governor for this support. And we appreciate your observation that certainly working on these aspects really of securing women's land presents a better opportunity for peace and stability, and also the reconstruction and recovery process, but also how this links to national building and sustainable development in the long term. So thank you very much, and our appreciation, and looking forward for that continued collaboration and support from the Office of the Governor. Now it has come to our time for some interactive sessions, and we have about 10 minutes before it's 30 minutes are over the additional time, and we hope maybe we can be able to get there soonest. Let me allow my colleague Helen to share some of the immediate questions that have been shared via the chat message, and see who best can respond to them quickly. Helen, and then as a question can also put up their hand and see whether we can be able to have any additions at the moment. So over to you, Helen.
Okay, thank you, Evelyn. Thank you very much, and thank you to all presenters for your various submissions. So far, we have around 4 questions. Some of them addressed to the government the honorable ministers from the government of South Sudan. Others are in the form of statements, sort of like suggestions or comments to enrich these discussions that we're having today. So I'll go directly to the first question, and this one is asking. My question is: women access land rights is a difficult issue, particularly to pastoralist communities across South Sudan. How can government resolve such issues of women access to land rights in those pastoralist communities? So that's the first question. I think I should just proceed to read the rest. Maybe I can read and then we'll see how they can be answered. The next question is on rural areas, and the question is asking, how will we be able to help the women in rural areas, because these women from the grassroots are mostly affected by culture and many other factors that may not allow them to have access to land or hold the property. Another one, which is in the form of a statement, is saying the relevant ministers related to land and infrastructure should simply ensure that there are no unreasonable barriers to producing housing of all kinds in all parts of the country for people of all levels of income. And yet another one in the form of a statement, it's that land for the landless, then efforts to reduce poverty must include effort to provide land for the landless. This can be accomplished through allocation of existing unused or underutilized government-owned land programs that assist landless people or groups to purchase land. So those are the four to start with, although I am seeing as I was speaking, others are coming in, but so far not in the form of questions, but statements or comments or suggestions. I don't know, Evelyn, if you want me to proceed to read. Yes?
No, maybe just
you allow me?
The ones you've just, let's take the ones you just shared and probably have, if we have representation from the Ministry of Lands, Housing and Urban Development, could probably take on the question that has been raised about landlessness and the questions on the pastoralist women, and then we can have the support from the Land Commissioner if you are there, as well as looking at the gender in rural and urban context, if we have the representation of the gender, the Minister of Gender for that question. If you could kindly take the floor, in charge of land, if I can remember. George? Have the representation of the Ministry of Lands. If not, we can have Robert Lokundu, the Land Commissioner, taking on the questions. Any response? Maybe I can request the representative from the Humanitarian Affairs, if you could take the question on housing rights and whether this also come into play, particularly for refugees and IDPs. If you kindly provide an intervention there. Honorable Peter. Minister, Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Management, are you in a position to provide an input to any of the question? Kindly unmute yourself. Kindly unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you. Am I being heard? Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Honorable Minister.
Yes.
Very good, yeah. Sorry, I take care of disasters, so I've been in and out, but I still like follow the programs while doing my normal duty as well. If you will give me the questions, those who have missed, those who have had, but when it comes to the land rights for the refugees and then the land rights for the homeless people, the principle is that every South Sudanese deserve to have land. You know, what we do from the humanitarian grounds for the refugees that are coming back home, we have refugees that had already had their own land before, and because for any reasons, political reasons, any reason, you know, they lost those lands. The ministry is there in coordination with other relevant ministers in regards to the resolution that has been made by the Council of Ministers that if you had a land and someone is illegally occupying your land, as a refugee, you have a right to demand that particular land. So committees has been formed, a clear instruction has been given to make sure that the IDPs, refugees are able to retain back their land. Cross over South Sudan, this is a fact. Secondly, those who have never had a land and they want to acquire land, yes, it's the duty of ministry, and we soon both the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, the Minister of Land, they're soon going to table a policy in terms of return. And within that policy, there is a window whereby the IDPs, refugees that are coming back home could be able to attain land. Here we're talking about we're talking about the women land. I mean, the women right to have access to land. It's very important. So in short, I would say that the government policy, the Minister of Humanitarian, in working closely with the Minister of Housing and Land, is basically to make sure that the homeless, IDPs, refugees that are returning back home could be able to find land within their communities. So it is a clear when it comes to that particular question, unless otherwise.
Thank you so much, Minister Peter, for the intervention. And we really appreciate that. I think the policy, as you've rightly put, would probably be able to lay very strong foundation in terms of rights for women, but also for pastoralist communities. And this challenge cut across the region where we have a lot of pastoralist communities, and particularly looking at group rights, which are somehow different in terms of how how land is governed, how it's accessed, who makes the decision, and so forth. And women sits in a very complex space within the traditional pastoralist communities, particularly in asserting those rights and even defining those rights. And I think we have also practices and we have tools that we have been able to apply, even supporting communities in documenting even their land, whether in pastoralist communities or in urban areas or rural areas. And one of the tools is the social tenure domain model, which GLTN at the UN-Habitat are being able to use this in supporting various communities, but also there are other tools out there that also does the same. So on the pastoralist component, I know that probably would be covered, and I hope, and also probably through the draft national land policy, the rights of the pastoralist communities as far as land issues are concerned, including women within those communities, will be certainly be secured. In terms of rural women and versus baby and the aspects of culture, changing culture and traditions does not take, it takes a longer time, particularly in influencing behaviors and practices. And one of the effort and the strength of this project was the combination of the different initiatives, including awareness creation through media, through the materials that you have seen that were developed in partnership with our partner NRC, but also having community dialogues, also involvement of the traditional leaders. affected bonded IDPs and returnees are able to enjoy those rights. And I think that's one avenue of breaking those barriers that are from culture and tradition, but asserting those rights for women, but also for other members of the communities, and addressing power relations even within the households in terms of, male and women, and how decisions are made in terms of governance of household or family land, of productive resources that are there in terms of farm products and so forth, and the role of women versus that of men. It's important to also highlight that gender does not necessarily mean women, but also how both men and women can enjoy the opportunities that come with those resources. So I'm very much aware that there could be other questions that are still pending, and we also past the time.
Evelyn, if you could allow me. Evelyn?
Yes, please, Helen. Yes.
If you could allow me, I am reliably informed that Honorable Robert Lokunju would like to say something to the questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable, please, Lokundu. Robert, if you could kindly take the floor.
Thank you. I was trying to explain the rights of women to inherit property, whether among the pastoral community or the farmers, in urban areas or rural. In urban areas, a woman has got the right to inherit land, husband together with the surviving heirs and dependents of that deceased husband. But this does not bar her to own resources. With regards to the pastoral communities, pastoralists, the most important thing for a pastoralist are the pastures, not the normal land, for farming and all. Because what they really need for the pastures is to feed their animals, and actually this is what they depend on. But the normal land that is given, the rural areas, women sometimes are more protected with our setup than, a man. You look at, a widow, a single mother. The people in the village, they go and even cultivate farm. And for men, you don't exclusively own land that belongs to you. You collectively, perpetually own that land together with your members of the clan. So the rights of women are protected, but only in urban areas, that's where the argument really lies. That they should have that property. Why inherit the property together? Having heirs of the deceased husband. This is the argument that they raise. And it depends on their pastures.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable Lokundu, for that intervention. I don't know whether I've lost you or probably I cut you short, but I hope maybe you're able to conclude your intervention. Yes, sorry. I think time is not aside, but we really appreciate. I think your clarification is very clear, and I think these are the statements, the policy statements and clauses that we hope are fully secured in the policy, and we are very confident that this is the way to go. So I know participants, ministers, as well as colleagues from different stakeholders, we've come to an end of this session, but I want to highlight the importance of the partnership that so far we've had. But I want to give Meshach Malo, who is the country representative for FAO in South Sudan, the opportunity to make a quick conclusive reflection of this session, and I hope that we can conclude after his remarks. Meshach, please.
Hello? We can hear you.
Can hear you. Yes, can hear you.
as the Food and Agriculture Organization, we really want to thank you for the efforts that you are taking. I think you being with the team here, it's really a show of your personal commitment to this issue, which is very important. I want to thank the Commissioner and all the participants that are participating in this event. For the Food and Agriculture Organization, it's really a privilege for us to be involved. In terms of speaking, today I was not able to be here because I went to a cattle camp in which we were actually participating in a vaccination against the eradication of one disease called pet petit ruminant, which we believe can be eradicated. However, at the cattle camp, still the issues of land came and still regarded as very important. For instance, now they've just moved here. The floods, they were a bit stuck. They don't know how they'll go back. They're negotiating on their routes and a number of things. And in short, the work that the government, the Land Commission, the Parliamentary Land Committee, the Ministry of Justice, and the support that we are having from PBF, to us raises three important things that we are trying to work on. One, within those cattle camps, you see a lot on the issues of land management. How do they manage their pastures? Within that, you will see issues that emerge on issues of land registration, certification. And it is very clear that disputes tend to occur, and in their thoughts, as they are planning to move, they are really considering best ways in which their movement do not cause disruption. But that's the issue of land adjudication in the event that it emerges comes up. And so as the Food and Agriculture Organization, we just want to reconfirm our commitment to move beyond land management and also work on land registration, work on land adjudication. As most of you know, FAO was involved in the development of the voluntary guidelines for land. And above all, and I think this is where the presence of the Honorable Minister, the community leaders, important. Peace would be a vital component in all this. So I thank all of you for this. I thank our partners for partnering with us. And as most people have said, this is something that we all need to come together. And PBF has got this one important element that it tries to bring all of us together so that we can come up with a consensus on the best way forward. Thank you very much to everyone for your investment in time and in participating in this dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Meshach. You've provided a very great summary. I think that give a highlight of all the partnership commitment to continue collaborating and working jointly hand in hand, accompanying the institutions of government, the traditional institution, the communities, the women, and the including young women, IDPs, and the returnees. We have also the youth. At times they are caught in between. What is their land rights versus the older generation? All these are areas that we are very much committed at UN-Habitat and working with our partners. NRC, I want to acknowledge the partnership with NRC and the role they've played also in this project. I think the PBF gave us the opportunity to really complete the circle of having the government, the UN, the civil society, and the communities, the traditional institution and structures of government working together. And I think this is the true definition of partnership. And I think this project's success, despite the challenges of COVID and what we have experienced, we already have a lot of milestones to celebrate. And as mentioned, we hope we can be able to demonstration of some of the application of the tools of documenting tenure rights for communities, informal and informal situation within along the continuum of tenure rights and making it a reality. So we really thank the government ministers that have participated, Thank you to our partnership from the UN colleague agencies. Thank you to the civil society organization, international institutions, and partners that we have been able to join the meeting. Thank you to the different community groups. Thank you to our traditional leaders, our governor, our mayor on the ground. We really appreciate the representation and all that have been able to contribute directly. This is a show or a true demonstration of your value for this partnership. And we hope we can continue this communication and working together. We will look forward to hearing more from us in terms of our plans for the next steps. And we invite your partnership, feel free to make recommendations on how best we can better future opportunities for the implementation of this project. From my side and on behalf of all the partnership for this project, I want to thank all of you, and also not to forget PBF. Keep us in mind, we are there and ready to continue. We hope that this really has opened a road to a greater destination. So thank you everybody. Good evening, good morning to others from different parts of the world who are joining. May you have a good time and meet you out there in the field. Thank you.
Okay, too.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Evelyn. Thank you, colleagues.
This Thomas.
Thank you. Bye.